Some women feel nothing. Some women honestly feel no changes. They have no symptoms. So they say, oh, I didn't go through menopause. You don't feel your bones getting brittle. You don't feel your arteries getting clogged. And these are called the silent killers. And so I always worry most about the asymptomatic woman because she won't go to the doctor.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode of the Sleep Like a Boss podcast. I'm Anika Carroll, your host. And today we're going to talk about something that I'm super excited about. You know, it's going to be sleep related to some degree. We're going to talk about menopause, and we're going to talk about a topic we haven't touched on at all, and that is surgeries and sleep. So, pain management, recovery, all that kind of stuff. And I'm super excited to have Zora Benhamou with me today. Welcome to the show, Zora.
Thank you so much. Yeah,
I'm
we definitely, it's all related to sleep.
It is all related to sleep. And you are a gerontologist and you are a biohacker who has dedicated her life to helping women age well, I would say, right? To make us feel vibrant in menopause and beyond. And it's actually funny. We were introduced by a friend, by Judy Steger, but I actually found you on Instagram before because you have these amazing reels of women that you interviewed about their menopause journey all over the world. And I don't know, that just popped up on my feed at one time. And I was like, oh, this is wonderful. It's just so interesting to see these different women with their different stories. And from like a functional perspective, also, it's like, okay, where's she from? Where's she from? Are there differences? Is this right? Like, how are women experiencing this time of life, and who's doing well and who's not, didn't do so well, maybe, or isn't doing well? It's just fascinating, and we're going to go into that. And I'm so excited to have you because I've never had anybody on the show who actually looks into aging from that perspective. So. Maybe we'll just start. And how did this start for you? How did you even get into this topic of teaching women how to age well and learn about it?
Oh, yes. I should probably explain what gerontology is and what biohacking is because I seem to choose these two fields that nobody knows about. So, gerontology is the study of aging and longevity, and biohacking is hacking your biology, sort of health optimization. Let's just call it like that and keep it really simple. But I've been interested in aging ever since my mother passed away of breast cancer when she was only 57. I was 23. I'm from LA originally, Los Angeles. So it's kind of like in your LA DNA to be healthy and look into wellness. But it kind of took another notch when my mom died. And I was just like, I just don't want to die early. Like, what can I do? So from a very early age, I've been looking at solutions and answers, and then eventually got into health coaching and nutrition. And then I fell into this biohacking space, which I absolutely love because what I do like about it is that usually it refers to a group of people called biohackers. And what we understand is we love to look at the science and the research, but we know that we're all bio-individual, meaning we all react differently to different things and different modalities and different supplements and different treatments. And so we're into the N of one experiment. So like if you have a scientific study that says N of 1,000, then it's 1,000 people if we have, but the only person that really matters in this room is you. And if you don't react well and everybody else does, well, then who cares? So we love to do these sort of self experiments. And a lot of people think it's about gadgets and technology. And yes, we love the wearables like the Aura rings and the Apple watches, but really the foundation of biohacking is everything that we kind of know. It's very ancestral in terms of getting the right nutrition, getting enough movement, and having good sleep and stress management, your community, purpose in life, those things that really, really matter. And once we have those in place, well, then we look at, so imagine a pyramid. Once we have that foundation, then we can look at the middle tier, which would be the supplements and maybe ice bathing and sauna use and some cool stuff that you don't really need a doctor for. And a lot of people like to jump into that right away. What supplement can I do to sleep? There's sort of the foundation there, right? We try to work on that first. Then the very top tier of the pyramid are things that you probably would need a doctor for in terms of hormone therapy or platelet-rich plasma injections and stem cells and these kinds of cool things. But a lot of people, they just like to go to that top, middle, and top tier first. And I encourage people, really, biohacking is about understanding yourself and getting that foundation right first. So I fell into that group because I really thought they were looking at things that are not generally talked about in the health and wellness space. They're sort of next level science. And that absolutely attracted to me. And then eventually I said, well, when COVID happened, I said, I want to get a master's degree in biohacking. But it doesn't exist. But eventually, I found gerontology, which is the study of aging, longevity. But we look at things not only from a biological perspective, but from a psychological and a sociological perspective, sort of brings these things together. Because I knew already by then it's not just what you eat that determines how you age. Of course, it's a big component, but there's so many other factors in terms of aging well, right? Or aging the way you want to age, because aging is a menu of choice, right? You can age like the stereotypical age, fatigue and joint pain and disease, or you can age like somebody you may find on Instagram who is smashing it and athletic and active and the brain's working. And so we do have a choice. Unfortunately, we have this stereotype that I'm always trying to disrupt because it's what we see. But I think nowadays, if you can look a little deeper, you will see that we can choose up to a certain extent, but we do have a lot of control. And so I love to bring in the biohacking with the gerontology, because when I talk about menopause, it's not just about suppressing symptoms, and we can do that really easily. I'm more concerned about your 80-year-old self and what happens, because dementia and Alzheimer's, heart disease, all these things don't start at 80. They start in your 30s, 40s, 50s, right? So what we do today is really, really important to how we are going to age in the future. And so that's how I bring those two worlds together, and to help women have a smoother menopause transition.
Awesome. And from your travels and the women you've interviewed and where we see the reels on social media, and maybe also from your studies, because I'm assuming that it was picked up there too. Are there differences either in continents, in different races? Do we see certain groups of women struggle more? Maybe also behavior wise, like how have they lived their lives? Have they had children? Didn't they have children? Is there something where you see trends, or where even studies see trends?
Yeah, so people don't know I travel a lot. I am a recovering nomad, uh, which we'll talk about later why I'm recovering. But I've been nomadic and an expat basically most of my life, meaning I'm born in one country, living in another. And as I'm traveling a lot, I'm curious to see how women's experiences are of menopause. So I literally stop women on the street, ask them 5 questions, and here I have no agenda. I'm not there to give my opinion. It's just let them talk, whether I agree with it or not. And that's why it's so interesting to see how women are experiencing this. And so there's that component. And then, what does the research show? And what I'm finding is that all women are going through menopause. Well, the research shows no one's getting away with it. Right? Menopause is inevitable. No matter how healthy you are, we will all eventually lose our hormones and go into this menopause period. So we all are experiencing this. Some of them have now how they're experiencing it, or their attitudes are different. So we all have symptoms. And I don't see, more hot flashes in one culture and less hot flashes in another. It's the research does show that women in Asia, for example, report fewer menopausal symptoms. When they say report, are they not saying anything? Are they just, too shy, or are they actually not experiencing these things? So it's debatable what that actually means. But what I'm seeing is, I've interviewed women in Thailand and Vietnam and Hong Kong and China, and we see women from all over those area of Asia that they are actually dealing with hot flashes, a similar, same things that we're all going through in the West. But I've noticed that their attitudes and their concerns are different. So when I ask a woman in Germany or in France or in the US, Canada, about their experience, um, I think women are definitely much more aware in those areas in terms of their options of how to suppress the symptoms. But they're very open to talking to me and excited to share their story. Whereas in Asia, it's not that they're not excited, they're more like they look at me a little bit strange. Like, why are you asking me this? It's not a concern, or it's not that big of a deal, or I have bigger fish to fry. And it will often be a woman who's has a lower socioeconomic level, and she's selling fruit on the street or t-shirts in a shop. And so I think her attitude is different. I think it is the suck it up buttercup kind of a thing. It's just the way life is. And I don't think she realizes the options that are out there. And when you ask her, what are you doing for your menopause, or what did your mother do? It's very often, well, drink juice and exercise, very simple things. Sometimes you'll see a supplement here and there, an herb, but I see there's very difference in attitudes.
Okay. And do we see the long-term consequences of hormone loss? So you were touching on it, right?
Mm.
Mental health, so
Yeah,
dementia,
yes.
Alzheimer's, cardiovascular issues, bone density struggles. Is that something that we see in the Asian population as well? Yes, I would assume we do.
Yeah, yeah. And no, the women still women globally are there are very few women actually taking hormone replacement
Mhm.
therapy. It's very, very low. So in the end, the results of the loss of hormones, or at least that's contributing to diseases of aging, are universal. And so that's what we will see. But in terms of the experience and the transition, there'll be differences. And we do have some research showing that women who have a supportive family, like, or people around her who are supportive, have a better menopause transition. The women who wear the pants in the family also have a better menopause transition. So these are some of the things we can pick up from the research and see, well, okay, and that makes perfect sense when you think about if you're struggling with your menopause symptoms and no one is supporting you, not your doctor, not your partner, not your kids, not your girlfriends, well, then you feel really much very alone. And that's very frustrating because you always think, oh, something's wrong with me, or I'm dying, or I'm getting Alzheimer's, when it could just be very much the loss of estrogen and can easily be corrected.
And what do you think from all the research you've done? What are like the two, three biggest misconceptions that are out there when it comes to menopause?
Mm. So menopause is for women over 50, or I didn't go through menopause
Mhm.
kind of a thing, where there's, oh, I'm too young for this. And you'll be talking to a woman in her 40s, which is, she's clearly in perimenopause, which is the most turbulent time. So that's when we struggle usually the most. It's postmenopause when things start to even out. And so when you think about the women who are not aware, are not concerned, and really think that there's something wrong with them, and given antidepressants and sleeping medications, when in fact it's again, the low hanging fruit would be, let's check out her hormones, let's see if she's there. So I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions. And another one is that hormones are dangerous. Hormones are bad. Estrogen causes cancer. This has been debunked. That was the Women's Health Initiative study from the early 2000s that came out with this precipitously without actually having the full report out. And it just kind of leaked in the press. And then eventually the original designers of investigators of the research showed, oh, okay, oops, we kind of made a mistake. We didn't mean to say these things. And in fact, there were a lot of holes with that study, but the damage was done. And this was over 20 years ago. So we're now just starting to unwind. And it seems like the pendulum is swinging totally on the other side, where we're really saying, oh, hormones are protective, which I really have to be careful with that word, because it makes it sound like, oh, I'll take hormones and then I don't need to do exercises to protect my bones. I don't, because hormones and estrogen is protective, quote unquote. And they've shown that it helps, it supports, but it's not a replacement for exercise and the right diet. So in fact, I think we need to be careful with these words that hormones can lower the risk of certain diseases. Yes, but it's not a replacement, just like a supplement, right? It can be supportive of an already healthy diet and lifestyle, but you still need to eat the nutrient dense foods. So hormones are definitely not dangerous. It's something to talk to the doctor about. There's a way to do hormone therapy. It's never a one size fits all. And especially if a woman is really struggling with her hormones right now, if she's struggling with menopause, the low hanging fruit is to really seek out a menopause doctor to help you with not only those sex hormones and perhaps to have that discussion with you about hormone therapy, but to look at all the other markers like your thyroid and your insulin levels, your cardiovascular markers. What else is going on in your life that could be influencing the way that you're feeling? Because hormones will have a big piece to it if you're in this transition, but it's not the only thing. And a good menopause doctor will look at really the whole picture. So don't be afraid of hormones. That's that's another big myth.
Right. And what about, because you talked about perimenopause and we talked about menopause. Maybe can you quickly walk us through just what are actually the different stages of menopause? Because I think there's still, yeah, like you were saying that myth,
Confusion.
I'm not in it. I still have my period. I'm not in it. Or
Yeah.
I
So
sometimes see a woman on also saying, I think I'm postmenopausal. And I'm
yes,
like, but
yes.
it's your body. Like you should know if you're postmenopausal or not. Peri might be a different, I think we need to learn more, but postmenopausal is generally quite well defined, I think.
Yeah, I think a lot of women are familiar with the word menopause, but still a lot of women don't know what perimenopause, and we confuse pre and peri. Are these the
Okay.
same things? And people often use those words together and they're completely different. And they don't even realize there's this word postmenopause. So menopause is sort of this umbrella term for the peri and the menopause and the postmenopause.
Mhm.
And that's why we're all so confused. So what most women do, and I have oftentimes asked, that's one of my first questions, are you in menopause or perimenopause, especially if it's a woman in her 40s, like I don't really know. And I often get like, I don't really know, like kind of, I don't, maybe. And so the next question is, do you still have a period? And yes, well, has it been 12? Or so definitely no. If you still have a period, you're not in menopause yet. Or I did, it came and it came back. And have you had 12 months without your period? No, not yet. And so you're in peri. And if they say, yes, I have, it's been a year and a half, well, then yeah, now you're post menopause. So we have to, even myself, have to explain some of these things during the interviews. So it's very universal that most people are confused about these terms. So I'll make them clear. So let's start with the word menopause. Just anyways, menopause is your birth date. That's the 12 consecutive months without your period. That's what a doctor may ask you is if to see, are you in actual menopause? It's a kind of the easy thing to do. And a lot of women, we know, we associate, we know that's coming. We know one day our periods will end. So menopause technically is a 1 day event. It's your birth date, the date that 12 consecutive months. And it's a really stupid marker because some doctors will not treat you with hormone therapy until had your menopause birth date. Meanwhile, you have to suffer another 5 to 10 years before they're actually going to help you, which drives me nuts. But that's the way a lot of doctors are. So just being aware that you have menopause is a 1 day event and everything after that is called post-menopause. And there's early post-menopause, which is your first 50 to 55, let's say, because the average age of menopause in the Western world is 51. So let's call it 50 just to be easy. And then that early post-menopause will be 50 to 55, more or less. But to understand, actually, in Asia, the average age is about 48. Africa is the same thing, about 48. India is 46. So we have different average ages of menopause. And so everything before before that menopause birthday, those 12 consecutive months, or the time around that is called perimenopause. And perimenopause is when your hormones start to fluctuate. That's when you start to notice some changes and differences. Your sleep is starting to get off. You're like, why am I waking up in the middle of the night? It's been a month now. I've been waking up in the middle of the night, and I had sleep through the night my whole life, right? So those are kind of things. So maybe your period is not 28 days like it used to be. Now it's 27, then it's 26, then it goes to 30. So it starts to change, and that's early perimenopause because we have early, mid, and late perimenopause, and there's different stages. So that perimenopause phase can be 5 to 10 years before your actual birth date. So you can imagine if you're not feeling well for 10 years, what a toll this can take on the body. Some women feel nothing. Some women honestly feel no changes. They have no symptoms. So they say, "Oh, I didn't go through menopause." So what do you mean? You're 62 years old. Do you still have your period? No, you did go through menopause. You are in it right now. And so, but they said, "But I didn't feel anything." I said, just because you don't feel anything doesn't mean things are not happening under the hood. You don't feel your bones getting brittle. You don't feel your arteries getting clogged. And these are called the silent killers. And so I always worry most about the asymptomatic woman because she won't go to the doctor. She thinks everything's fine. And meanwhile, she may wake up with a fall and a fracture or a heart attack or stroke. Things are happening under the hood. And that's why I encourage women to always just at least get a checkup if you're not, if you feel perfectly fine. So again, we have, there's a big spectrum for this perimenopause experience. Some women feel absolutely zero. Some women feel every single symptom under the sun. There are 103 symptoms of menopause, by the way. So it's not just like the two that we know of. We lose our periods and hot flashes and night sweats, which we all associate. So there's so many things we don't relate that could to menopause, that not that it is absolutely, but it's just very common, but we don't know about them. And so the early perimenopause, when you think about it, if it was a woman in India, say she's 46 years old, that's her menopause birthday, no more periods, done. And if she were the kind of person that's dealing with perimenopause for 10 years, that means at 36, she's in perimenopause. And 35, like your mid 30s, more or less, is when we very across the board, universal, we start to lose our progesterone.
Mhm.
And progesterone is your calming and relaxing hormone, helps you sleep and helps you feel chill. It balances out estrogen. There's a lot of things that progesterone does. So that's why you may think, oh, your periods are starting to change, or I'm starting to have sleep disruptions. And it very often is because of the loss of progesterone. So we just don't think when you're in your 30s, who in the world is thinking about menopause? I certainly wasn't.
I wasn't, no.
So oh, no. And when you think about it, when you and I were going through perimenopause, well, at least I didn't know there was a word called perimenopause. And and that's somebody who's interested in health and wellness, right? And I do meet plenty of women who still don't know what perimenopause is, but even back then, and I'm 54 now, so this was a while back. I had no clue. But now looking back, I'm thinking, gosh, yeah, that was perimenopause when this and this happened. But really didn't know about it. So when you think about those early perimenopause phases, it's in your mid to late 30s, early 40s, it can happen. Then you have the mid perimenopause phase where you start to notice sometimes you will have a period 1 month and then it goes away for a month and then it comes back for 3 months and then it's gone for 6 months and then it comes back. And again, not everybody has this. I've met women who say, nope, my period just stopped once, never came back. So again, there's this whole spectrum, but generally speaking, there's this mid perimenopause phase. That's when you may start to see some weight gain, like unexplained weight gain. Nothing's changed in your life. You become a little bit more insulin resistant. And that's the mid perimenopause phase. And then and that happens maybe around your 40s, let's say 40s, and then, or to late 50s, early 50s. So the late perimenopause phase will be late 40s early 50s, more or less mid 50s even. I'm still perimenopausal, 54. So I haven't hit my birth date, but that's a late perimenopause phase. I still say I'm menopause. It's like it's a bit quite late, but technically speaking, I'm not yet post menopause. So I hope this clears the confusion, and the premenopause word is for everything generally when you get your period when you're 10 or 12 or 13, whatever it is these days, up until you hit the hormonal fluctuations in perimenopause. So there's pre, peri, menopause, and then post menopause.
Thank you for
Does that
that.
make
And
sense?
before we go into
Sorry, it was
I know
long-winded.
it's a whole thing. And before we go into hacking this, I just like how do we hack this and why is that important? Just coming back to this, when women hit menopause, um, and I was just blown away by this early onset in Asia actually, because 46, I don't know what the life expectancy for women is, but I'm assuming it's somewhere around the 80, 82-ish,
Mm.
maybe.
In
So if
India,
you
I think it's a little bit lower, but
yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, but even if
It's
it's like
yeah,
78 or something, right? Like
yeah,
we're
yeah, yeah,
probably
yeah,
somewhere and around that. So if you
yeah.
think about the amount, like the first 10, 12 years, we didn't have the hormones like that because when we were born, right? The whole
Mm.
system, like, so then we hit puberty, then we get them. But then the amount of time we live without them now,
Yeah.
like that's a long time, right?
Yeah,
It's,
30 to 50 years.
yeah,
Sorry, 30 to 50%, 30 to 50% of the life of a woman
it's
will be in
without.
that
Yeah.
without those
Yeah.
hormones or crazy, either peri or post
Yeah.
menopause. It's insane. So it's quite a large number of women. And that's why there's people like me bringing the awareness because I think it's an important thing to understand because we're very often medicated for unnecessary reasons.
Yes, and I think that's one point. And before we hit record, we're like, this is not necessarily like an HRT episode, right? And we talk a lot about hormones right now, but um, just this is just to really set the scene. And I think what you just said is something that, and because some women might not have access to HRT, some women might not be able to take it for maybe family history, health reasons, or personal health history. Some women might say, I just completely stay away from that. I don't want to do that. That's everybody's total free choice. Um, I think the only thing, like what we need to understand, and that was something that wasn't even clear to me, being in the health space. And this is not necessarily saying HRT, but estrogen, for instance. If women get put on, um, heart medication, cholesterol medication, like multiple. If you start talking to women in their 40s and 50s and you ask them, because I see that when my clients come in, right, on the intake form, it's like, what medications are you on? Some of them are none, some of them are quite a few. But if you understand what's happening in the human body or in the female body specifically, then a lot of these things can potentially being mediated, and you might be coming off of some of these if your hormones are being managed well, right? That's why we're saying that is often this multi-pharmaceutical approach of all these meds when we're looking and we're looking under the hood and seeing what's actually going on. Is
Hmm.
that something that we need to medicate for the rest of our lives? Because that's likely you're not going to get off that, even unless you had a horrible lifestyle and we turn it around, that might improve things. But likely you're not coming off of a lot of these for the next 30 years.
Hmm.
Um, Unless you go into the approach of saying, I'm trying to actually manage my hormones. And like you said earlier, this can be other hormones too, right? This can be your thyroid can be involved in this. This can be your cortisol can be involved in this. There's lots of other hormones in the human body. But we really, that's why I think a lot of women like you are advocating for this, not in the sense of HRT for everybody, but understanding what's happening, why we're being put on these drugs, and how can we manage, even if HRT is not our thing, how can we biohack? Because that's, I think, right? How can we help ourselves go through this period and set the body up for success so we don't end up with all those aging diseases, basically.
Yes, there's so many things we can do. And I the low hanging fruit, yeah, it's easy to stop. If you have a hot flash, it's easy to suppress a hot flash with estrogen. You don't need a lot, honestly. But I do meet women who have every symptom in the sun under the sun except the hot flash. So, but we have to keep in mind too that just women who try to white knuckle their way through a hot flash, like, oh, it's coming, it's fine, it's not a big deal, I deal with that, and that's okay. But there's a study of women's health across the nation that was presented. They found that women who have more hot flashes earlier on during menopause are also higher at risk for heart disease and diabetes, insulin resistance, thyroid issues, dementia, arthritis, incontinence. The list goes on and on. So don't try to wear a badge and go, I'll white knuckle through this. I mean, deal with the hot flash, especially if it's happening earlier on in your menopause journey. So then again, you can look at all those other biomarkers. So that's one thing. So that's biohacking. That's advanced biohacking, but it's a really fast way to help you even to start the road down going to the diet and the lifestyle, because that is foundational, fundamental. But when I speak to women and say, look, you've got to fix your diet and get to sleep, manage your stress. They're like, how? I wake up after a tossing and turning all night. I've been up since 4 a.m. I have no energy to get to the gym. It just goes on and on. And so you almost feel bad. Like, how can I help this woman? So that's when you may go, oh, let's do this in tandem. Let's get rid of those, hot flashes and the night sweats and, get that sorted. So yeah, that's one thing. But if you're like, you know what, I don't want to do HRT, let me find some other things. Well, I found out that when you want to go down the biohacking route, okay, it's assuming you're getting your diet and lifestyle. I mean, we want to get enough fiber. We want to have a healthy body weight, because the more body fat you have, that is very often, not always, contributing to a hot flash or a difficult symptom. This is inflammation happening in the body. And again, this is excess. I'm not telling people to go get skinny. I just want them to be at a healthy body weight, whatever that means for you. And exercise will help with that. And exercise also helps with hot flashes and can help with sleep disruptions. It can help with a lot of the other menopausal symptoms like insulin resistance and that weight gain that we're struggling with, because insulin resistance in this way, in case the listeners don't know, it's you just can't eat the things that you used to eat. And very often, if we're talking about higher refined carbohydrates, right? You used to have that bagel and cream cheese, and doesn't seem to happen. Like, you can't eat that anymore without gaining extra weight, and you're still exercising the same. So that's becoming insulin resistant. So the exercise will help us become more metabolically flexible as well. If you are eating some women notice that their hot flashes are triggered by stress. So the exercise can maybe help with the stress, and the stress helps with the hot flashes, and as well as the exercise. So it all kind of goes into one. And then some women, well, actually there is some studies actually out there showing that ice bathing, and that's a very like biohacking kind of a thing. It means jumping into a cold pool, cold plunge, or taking a very, very cold shower, that can help 50%. This is a study from University of Kent showing that was 50% of their participants actually had a decrease in their hot flashes. And you kind of go, well, it kind of makes sense. You're getting into a nice bath. But it also helps convert that white fat, which is that fat storing fat, into brown fat, which is the burning fat, which we all want. And so many other cool things. Sauna use, even though it sounds like, oh, well, that can trigger a hot flash. But for some women, infrared saunas are actually helping a lot with their stress and with their sleep and with the weight gain and with inflammation, a lot of other things. So infrared sauna is a little different than the traditional sauna where you get hot and sweaty and all that, which is really good. You want to sweat out toxins, right? You want to sweat out, especially our estrogens that need to be detoxified, right? So it goes this detoxification phase, and now we can get rid of it through sweat. And that's why exercise is really good. But getting into a sauna is excellent. An infrared sauna is not as hot. You'll have these red bulbs, and they're different wavelengths, so you can tolerate sitting in there a little bit longer. There's just tons of other things. It'll be like gadgets. I don't know. You probably have a lot of sleep gadgets that you talk about. There's like chili pads where it's a little mattress topper. It keeps you cool so that your partner doesn't have to, turn on the AC, right?
Yeah, I
Um,
think sleep gadgets is a bit like to me personally, because the clients I work with often because they struggle so much with sleep and they often stress about the data that they see that I often recommend to not use them at least for a while so we get that nervous system regulated while it can give you great data. I think a biohacker has this ability to emotionally detach themselves often from the data and look at it from a scientific point of view, right? And from an, like you said, from an optimization point of view, right? And then
yes.
you try things and you're like, oh, did that improve my HRV? Or did my deep sleep go up when I, whatever, spend an
Yeah.
extra half an hour exercising today? I'm making this up now, right? But sometimes for people who really struggle with sleep, I'm sometimes a bit cautious with like, at least with tracking. I think the things like chili pads, specifically for women who struggle with night sweats, I've only heard good things. They are an
Yeah.
investment. Like they're not free. They're really
Yeah.
expensive. But if that's something that you really struggle with and you can't get it under control, either with HRT or you don't want to or can't go on it, um, they are they can work and you can sleep on it while your partner doesn't, so they don't have to freeze and you can go up,
You know what's
right?
a really cool hack, actually? So one of the recommendations for good sleep, which you know, obviously, but especially for women in menopause, is keep the room cool, right? So like 16, sorry, I'm in Celsius,
Yes.
Fahrenheit, right? More or less.
It's
So
like
60 degrees.
63 or something. Yeah, 61, 63, that kind of,
It's
yeah.
cold, it's chilly,
Yeah.
right? So, but it helps with the body in terms of sleep in general, but also if you're having a hot flash or night sweats, you're at night, you're less likely to have one. But if you sleep with somebody who's not comfortable in that temperature, and that can happen where they're freezing, I like the way, and I think in Germany they do this too, but in Eastern Europe, when you go into a hotel room or
We
Airbnb,
always sleep with two different
you
duvets.
have two different
Yes.
duvets, right? I think that's the coolest hack. That's cheap. and, and that way you can be like a torero, opening and closing your
Yeah.
your sheet or blanket or duvet, and it's not disrupting the partner. So that's just such a cool thing to do. And I think for anyone, I guess if you're any sleeping for any reason, if you are struggling with sleep, period, it's a great hack. So I think there's simple things like that that we can do to help manage that as well.
Absolutely. And I think, because for me, coming from Germany, right, it's like we've always grown up like that. Everybody has their own. And I remember when I met my husband, I was always, I was like, bring your own blankets. He's like, what? I'm like, do you know how small these blankets are? Like, you're not going to have a blanket if you don't bring your own. Like, I'm literally going to take it and sleep. Yeah, he learned that quite quickly. And and then here in North America, where we're now, it's like where they generally have like king sized or whatever mega. I can't sleep like that. It's just, he's a radiator.
Yeah.
It's like, and you can't manage your own temperature well under these
Yeah.
massive things. I find the individual ones are great. Like this house,
So now
will
you have
always,
two. So now
always.
you have
It
the
it
two
does
duvets.
get it did get a little I have to say in the beginning it was really complicated to get covers. Like you can buy that, but then there's the big cover manufacturers don't make necessarily they just
The
make
half
the really
size.
small ones for like the kids. I'm like,
Yeah.
but now with all the other bigger international companies coming in that have European measurements sometimes, and it's not a problem.
It's
Yeah.
great.
How do you think, um, like in your own journey, in your research, like what part do you think sleep plays? Like when somebody tries to biohack their health or their menopause, like where's
Yeah.
sleep for you?
It's the number one. It's the one of the magic bullets. The two magic bullets I absolutely love are exercise and sleep because they do so much. So exercise, we can generally force ourselves to exercise. We have to, but we can't force ourselves to sleep, right? It's like too hard. So, and then the stress and the sleep component always go hand in hand, or most of the time, not always, right? So I think that is foundational because especially when we're talking about aging and longevity, if you want to live a longer, healthier life, then sleep is the repair mechanism. That's when you rejuvenate. That's when cells turn over. That's when detoxification can happen. That's when we have the lymphatic drainage system. And I think you've talked about that before too, in terms of your detox of your brain happens when you're asleep. So when we're deprived of sleep and deprived of deep sleep, we're actually accelerating aging. So if you want to get Alzheimer's, go and deprive yourself of sleep, eat the garbage, have all the stuff, the lifestyle that we're pretty much, many of us are living now is keep going, because that's the fast track to Alzheimer's or dementia or to diseases, any diseases of aging. So, but sleep is foundation. And the problem is as you very well know, is the more information we give about how important it is, the more stressful it is for the people who are not sleeping.
Yeah.
So, but you have your techniques to understand that and to work with somebody. And I think the people who are listening to, if they are an insomniac and they have the issues, oh my gosh, go and see Annika, because it's time to reprogram the brain and change the perspective. And we do the same thing with stress, and stress is not bad. Stress is our friend. Cortisol is great at the
Yes.
appropriate times, right? We can't demonize these things. If we didn't have a stress response, we'd all die
Yes.
because we wouldn't react. It's that chronic low grade stress, or cortisol too high for too long, and that's what's causing all these disruptions. So we don't want to demonize things. We want to become friends with stress, maybe look at things as in a different perspective. If something stressful happens, can we look at it as, can we take that as a challenge? Okay, it's a challenge now to figure this out. And it's an opportunity. Like when we talk about menopause, we can complain till the cows come home. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to complain, and there's a lot of reasons, and for good reason, because we're suffering. But if you look at it and not in a stressful perspective, but say, you know what? I'm going to take this on as a challenge and an opportunity to improve my health and become the best version of myself. This is going to be a challenge. I'm going to take it on. Then you're winning. And then that stress goes away, and you flip it. And that's just, again, a perspective thing.
Yes, and it doesn't, and I think it often seems very overwhelming in these situations, right? Where we're already don't feel well. And it's like, oh my God, now I'm going to become the better version of myself. And you can do this in tiny increments, right?
Yeah.
It's like it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's not going to be, we're going to, and we all know this, right? It's not you're going to the gym that one time and your body changes. It's like, no, but you feel better. You might have a little more energy. Your body's just kicking back in. And that allows you to make better choices, right? To do all these little things step by step to eventually just manage symptoms better and feel better. And I think the one thing you were just mentioning about sleep, I think it's that recovery, that regrowth, right? We also complain about sagging dry skin, looking older, right? If we don't sleep, yeah, that's just gonna contribute to it. But I think one thing that we often also underestimate is the emotional regulation that happens during sleep. If we talk about mental health, and perimenopause and menopause and anxiety for so many women is through the roof already because of progesterone not being on the scene and then estrogen just doing its thing. And often there's anxiety medications, there's antidepressants being pulled because we can't sleep, right? Like all these things are coming. But we don't necessarily need that. Like if we can work on these fundamentals, and like you said, yes, exercise will help with sleep, diet will also help with sleep. If we get the inflammation down, cortisol is better. We can eventually sleep better.
But it's also to say, I think it also, we have to be understanding that there is a time and place for the medication,
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
I think we
Absolutely.
sometimes I hear these things too, and I'm just to say the same thing, and I kind of go, okay, wait, we don't want to make people feel bad if they really
No,
need,
no,
right?
absolutely not.
Right.
Absolutely not. But I
But
think
there's a
it's
time and place, like that's it.
there is, um, and there's often not a magic pill. Right? Like sometimes, yes, these are can have their place, but they often, and specifically if we look at sleep, I often see women on them and they're like, I'm not sleeping. Like this is not helping me. This is helping me maybe in other areas of my life, but it's not helping with my sleep. Um, And there isn't as much as like these interventions or HRT. All these things are somewhat portrayed often also on social media. And I think HRT right now also as like a bit of a magic bullet.
Hmm.
I don't
Hmm.
know what your opinion is, my opinion, and I'm going down this road for myself potentially, like evaluating things now, but it's not, I don't think it's the magic bullet. I think
No.
it's what you described as the pyramid.
Yeah.
It,
It's the icing on the cake, but that's definitely, yeah, foundational. We have people who are aging amazing
yeah,
without any HRT, right? And there's the one, the genetic lottery. They don't have osteoporosis, they don't have heart disease, they don't have any of these things,
yeah.
but the majority of people do. So we have to figure out how, how much do hormones play a role in this to support, getting all the lifestyle factors in place. And when we think about, there is always a time and place for medication and for sleep meds. And I just went through two total hip replacement operations. And when they came in that room and said, take this medicine, I didn't ask any questions. I said, I want to sleep and I want to feel no pain. It's not a time to be a hero and be all natural and say, I'm going to live with the pain. No, the pain will be much greater and much more damaging than actually taking some kind of medication, whether it was for sleep or for something else. And that's what I would say. I needed that. And when you're talking about people also, as we're aging, they're living with chronic pain. And believe me, I know exactly what that is now. A little bit too early, I experienced this. You got to figure out what it is that's going to make you get relief from the pain. And again, there's sometimes, yeah, maybe you need some painkillers, but there's a time and place. And if you find yourself popping this every day, every week, then you're probably doing more damage than actually finding some other solution, whether it's an operation or whether it's some physiotherapy or whether it's something else. But you should not have to live with chronic pain. If any doctor says that's just life, you're getting older, then you got to go find a new doctor because it's very common, but it's not normal.
Yes. And maybe we can shed some light on what happened there. You had, you had hip replacement surgery, both sides, separate, two separate surgeries over several months apart. Which is a mega, A, it's a pretty big surgery. B, it's a mega recovery period.
Mhm.
Um, with a lot of pain involved if not managed correctly. Um, how did you prepare? What, from a biohacking perspective, what are things where you're like, oh yeah, this is how I managed pain. This I prepared myself to go through surgery smoothly. Like, what did you do? Because I'm sure you didn't just
No,
let it
no.
happen.
Yeah, I didn't have a lot of time to prepare from the time that I found a doctor. I had 2 weeks. So most
Oh,
people will have a bit more time to prepare, but my life has been a preparation. Like I've been trying to hack chronic pain, and I was pretty successful for about a decade until the last 2 years, and my biohacks were not working anymore. And interestingly enough, coincidentally with menopause, right? The loss of the hormones accelerates some of these problems. I wish I were one of those who I just took some HRT and then boom, the joint pain was gone. That wasn't me. So, but I certainly tried. And a lot of women who have joint pain, I see it's quite miraculous once they're on getting their restoring their hormones gone. They're totally gone. But for me, it wasn't that way. So I've been preparing for 2 years, like trying a lot of things and every single diet and every single kind of exercise. I was definitely diligent with my rehab, but I could see myself degrading over the years, doing less and less and less movement to the point where I could barely walk. And that's when it hit me like, I gotta do something about this because it's not going away. And so what I've been doing, sleep was a major, major part of my life in terms of trying to get sleep. And I was pretty lucky in the sense that as long as I didn't move, I
mhm.
didn't feel pain. Whereas a lot of people who have osteoarthritis cannot sleep because they're waking up with the pain. And I've gone through phases where I've woken up with pain, but it's never been the big picture for me. But the stress that comes with that as well, even though I'm a very positive person and the pain tolerance is so high, especially for women in general. But as you live with chronic pain, you become numb to it in the sense that it's normal. And so you may walk through life with thinking, okay, I'm going to figure this out. But your autonomic nervous system is always on alert because
Mhm.
every move you make is you're searching for pain. And that is disrupting sleep. It's disrupting a lot of hormonal changes in the body. So I think this sleep is super important because you are trying to recover. If you know, not everyone has as serious of an osteoarthritis as I did. Maybe you're just the beginning stages. Maybe it's just an injury. You got to sleep because that's when the repair mechanism happens. So all throughout those years was like that. But when I found out I had the surgery coming in 2 weeks, I knew that I had to get a good night's sleep, especially the night before the surgery. And I sleep pretty well, but the several days before the operation, I was waking up at 2 a.m., racing mind. Is this going to hurt? Are they going to cut off my leg? Is it going to be painful? What if I wake up in the middle of the surgery and am I going to have trauma the rest of my life? I'm going to go see a therapist. Like I was just coming with thoughts. I was doubling up on my progesterone, tripling progesterone. I was like, gotta sleep. And then I use this device. I don't know if you talk about it called Newcom.
No, you
Uh,
told me about it.
Oh yeah, so Newcom, yeah, it's neuroacoustic software.
Mhm.
And I called the company. I said, I said, should I be doing something? I have this app and maybe there's something special I can do for my surgery. And they said, do this one journey called Rescue 3 times a day. As many times as you can, but try to do it 3 times. And I started to do that. And then the day of my surgery, I had the best night of sleep and I was so happy. I didn't wake up. Everything was fine. I really worked hard on that stress component. And I went to the surgery completely chill, like so chilled. I could hardly believe myself. And so then I get the surgery. Oddly enough, I did wake up in the middle of the surgery, but I was so drugged out, I didn't really care. And they saw me and they just put me out again. But I don't have trauma. I thought it was pretty interesting. I mean, it was like out of body kind of experience. But anyways, to say then you got to sleep. And one of my most important post-surgery hacks is how to sleep in order for your body to repair, whether it's from a mastectomy, hysterectomy, a knee replacement, hip replacement. Sleep is so foundational. That's why in the hospital, they kept giving me the sleep medication. They didn't even ask me how my sleep was. They just assumed, which correctly, you don't have much sleep. So getting that sleep is really crucial. So I continued with the Newcom every day, 3 times a day for weeks and weeks. And even I still do it. I mean, it's just, I don't do it as frequently because I don't need it as much. But when you are just getting a surgery, you do wake up in the middle of the night a lot of times from pain. So then you got to that's when you take your painkillers and then or any sleep aids that you have. But it is such a crucial time. So if you can prepare and get your sleep on, because no matter how good you are at sleep, I'm pretty good at sleep. I still was waking up at 2 a.m. with anxiety and stress. And I'm not an anxious person and I had it down. So don't wait until things happen. Do it now. I mean, of course everybody wants to sleep, but it's even more important when you are not only surgery but it's aging in general because the system is the cells, everything is accumulated damage and it's slower to regenerate and revive. So then that means we need more sleep as we age, not less sleep, because there's this sort of myth that we don't need to sleep as much as we age. No, that's BS. I think we need to sleep. We still have to repair and rejuvenate. So that's my sleep spiel, I guess, because we know it's important. But for me, what helped a lot was the Newcom. I have a lot of other tools and gadgets, and breath work is something that also really got me through this time. It's free. You can go learn it. You can go to YouTube. Diaphragmatic breathing, getting the vagus nerve, which is that longest nerve in the body from the brain until it's a main highway to all your organs, and it tells your brain, it tells your body that it's safe. And when you feel safe, right, then you're more likely to sleep. So these are things that we can work on. You don't need to buy fancy gadgets and neuroacoustic software. Just start with the breath. It's my first recommendation, and it'll help you for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing that. And thank you for being so open about that too, because that's a very personal experience, right? With the
No.
surgery. So thank you so much. Zora, this has been great. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you would like to mention?
Oh my goodness. There's so much. Like, where should I start? Like, I could talk about menopause and surgeries for a long time. I gave you the short version, because there's a lot of other pre-surgery and post-surgery hacks that I have outside of sleep, but we wanted to cover that. So I think if anyone who's going into surgery and work on muscle, work on building that,
Yeah.
work on your sleep and the stress and your good nutrition, because your body can't repair without the right foods. And again, that foundation is so necessary. You're going to be so happy as you age that you'll have all these tools in your toolbox. But I also, if anybody is concerned about menopause, they can go to hackmyage.com and find all the information they really need. And I am happy to direct you to where you need to go after that if you're still stuck. And I have a menopause quiz. If you're not sure if you're one of those, like, am I in perimenopause or postmenopause, or how close am I and where do I think it happens, on hackmyage.com. In the very first page, you'll see take the quiz. You can take a quiz and you find out. And if you have questions, you just contact me on social media. I'm on all the social media channels, always as Hack My Age.
Yes, I will drop all the links in the show notes. And you also have the Hack My Age podcast, which I think has amazing guests and you have great conversations. So go
Yes.
check that out too.
Yes. And you'll be on there soon too. I'm excited to have you and share with my audience everything about sleep, which is, again, the foundation of pretty much everything. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Everybody, I encourage you to really check out the links. Go check out Zora's page and the podcast. It is so much great information on there. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. And we'll be back next time.
Thank you.